Hi, I'm Gordon from Camera Labs, and this is my hands-on preview of the Olympus OMD EM5 Mark III, a mid-range mirrorless camera aimed at photo and video shooters who value portability and handheld use without compromising features and quality. Announced in October 2019, it's the long-awaited successor to the EM5 Mark II, launched 4.5 years previously. It inherits the 20-megapixel 4/3 sensor from the EM1 Mark II, which finally brings confident phase detect autofocus and 4K video to the EM5 series, while also boasting improved built-in stabilization in a slightly lighter but still weather-sealed body. It'll cost £1,099 for the body alone, although rebates should see it fall to around £999, and there's a variety of lens kits too, such as with the 12-40mm f2.8 Pro lens that I have fitted here. I had a brief chance to try out a pre-production model, and in this video I'll tell you everything I know about it so far. As always, I'll post my in-depth review once I've fully tested a final production model, and we'll link to it here, so keep an eye open for it. If it's been a while since you've seen the EM5 Mark II, you'll assume the Mark III version simply swaps the sensor and processor for those in the EM1 Mark II, but Olympus has actually taken the opportunity to redesign the body and control layout. As before, it remains surprisingly comfortable in its compact form with a small but effective grip and a now more pronounced thumb rest. Switching to a polycarbonate body along with a smaller stabilization unit and lighter battery has allowed a weight saving from 469 to 414 grams including battery. It definitely feels lighter and inevitably less dense than the Mark II. Indeed, more like the EM10 Mark III, but it remains more weatherproof than its rivals, and Olympus assures me it's as robust as before. I found the body alone felt fine in my hands, but if you fancy more to hold on to, an optional grip screws into the base, increasing the height and depth while offering a repositioned shutter release and finger dial. Unlike the similar grip for the earlier Mark II though, there's sadly no headphone jack on the new one, and frustratingly the old grip is not compatible with the new body, so on the Mark III there's sadly no opportunity to connect headphones. The top of the camera reveals a number of control tweaks. On the upper left hand side, the Mark II's mode dial has been switched for the power, drive and display control, similar to that on the EM1 Mark II that's inspired by the film rewind lever on old 35mm SLRs. The lockable mode dial has now been relocated to the right side of the viewfinder head and now offers a dedicated bulb position for easier access to the unique Olympus lifetime and composite options. Meanwhile, Olympus has still squeezed in generously sized and very tactile finger and thumb wheels alongside exposure compensation and movie record buttons. The ISO button is positioned in the upper right corner of the rear. I want to give a very respectful nod to the Olympus designers for the finger and thumb dials on all of its OMD bodies, which prove you don't need to compromise on comfort and feedback on a small body. To me, cameras like the EM1 and EM5 series feel and operate like some of the best cameras of any size around, and companies like Fujifilm and Sony would do well to use them as inspiration. I should also add the Mark III retains the fastest mechanical shutter of 0.008 of a second, when most rivals stop at 0.004 of a second. I'm also glad to see the EM5 Mark III inherit focus bracketing as well as in-camera focus stacking for smaller bursts, along with Pro Capture for buffering the moments before you fully push the shutter, while the tripod high-res shot now generates 50 megapixel images. But as before, you have to be careful of anything that's moving in your shot, like rogue foliage or a bird in the sky. Like the EM5 Mark II, the screen remains side-hinged and fully articulated, making it one of the few cameras around now with this capability. I realise side-hinged screens typically require two motions to angle out, unlike the quicker and more discreet mechanism of a vertically tilting screen, but they offer so much more flexibility while also avoiding any hot shoe accessories when facing forward. As a vlogger and someone who also shoots portrait photos at high and low angles, I much prefer this approach. The built-in viewfinder sticks with an OLED panel with 2.36 million dots and a slightly lower 0.6 times magnification. All par for the course at this price, but Olympus has provided a generous 27mm eye point, making it more practical for wearers of glasses. Behind three flaps on the left-hand side, you'll find a 3.5mm microphone input, a jack for the optional RMCB2 remote cord, micro HDMI and micro USB ports, and I'm pleased that the latter now thankfully supports USB charging in camera, although sadly not power delivery for actual operation. You'll also note that the PC sync port of the earlier Mark II is no longer present on the Mark III. Interestingly, Olympus has switched battery packs to the BLS50 that powers the EM10 Mark III to save size and weight, although in terms of overall volume, this pack is actually quite similar to the old one. Olympus quotes 310 shots per charge, or around 110 minutes worth of video recording, all of which I'll test in my final review, and again, you can charge the battery internally over USB. Meanwhile, the memory card is housed behind a door on the grip side of the camera, handy for easier access compared to most rivals, which house the card alongside the battery underneath. The headline upgrade over the Mark II is adopting the sensor first introduced on the EM1 Mark II 3 years earlier. This not only boosts the resolution from 16 to 20 megapixels, but crucially brings embedded phase detect autofocus to the EM5 series for the first time. It's long overdue, but the sensor transforms the overall handling and experience with 121 cross-type points spread across the frame, bringing confident refocusing for stills and video. You'll also note that Olympus is the only company that actually defines its embedded phase detect point type, describing them as cross-type points. What are the points that everyone else uses on their systems? Olympus has also improved the built-in stabilization, claiming up to 5.5 stops with unstabilized lenses, or up to 6.5 stops when working alongside the optical stabilization in compatible Sync IS lenses like the 12 to 100mm f4 Pro. The Olympus stabilization remains one of the most effective systems around and has allowed me to handhold exposures of several seconds. As an example, here's a 1-second handheld shot taken with the pre-production EM5 Mark III, and I look forward to seeing what the body's capable of in my final tests. Like all Olympus mirrorless cameras, the EM5 Mark III is based on the Micro Four Thirds standard that may use a smaller sensor than APS-C, but in my test still delivers great results, at least so long as you avoid the very high sensitivities. Olympus also claims that newer processing allows 6400 ISO shots to match the quality of 1600 ISO on the older Mark II. And remember, thanks to the effective stabilization, you'll often be able to handhold slower shutters than normal, allowing you to deploy lower ISOs for static subjects or enjoy motion effects with moving ones. Meanwhile, the Micro Four Thirds lens catalogue is the broadest and most established of all the native mirrorless systems, with loads of great options that all become stabilized on the body. The movie capabilities have been upgraded in line with the recent Olympus models, supporting 1080 at 24 to 60p, 4K UHD at 24, 25 or 30p, and even the wider Cinema 4K format in 24p, and the latter in a very high bitrate of 237 megabits per second. Sadly, there's no auto ISO in manual exposure mode for movies though. What is present and correct though is phase detect autofocus during movies, allowing the EM5 Mark III to refocus without hunting on moving subjects. Again, this and the next clip were filmed with a pre-production camera, but it shows the EM5 moving in the right direction. It also makes the EM5 Mark III one of the most compelling overall cameras for vlogging. Hi, I'm Gordon from Camera Labs, and this is a quick vlogging test with the Olympus OMD EM5 Mark III, and this is arguably one of the most compelling cameras that has been released in the past few years for vlogging, and it's for a number of key reasons. First of all, the camera has Olympus's fantastic built-in image stabilization, which really does iron out all of those wobbles. Secondly, it has a side hinge screen that can face you without blocking any accessories. Of course, there's a microphone input, so you could mount a microphone on the hot shoe and not have it block the screen. Now, of course, the older EM5 Mark II had both of those, but what makes the Mark III more special is that it inherits the EM1 Mark II sensor, which finally equips this model with the phase detect autofocus that it always deserved. So now you get confident refocusing, whether you're close to the lens, far away, wherever you put yourself on the frame, you can be confident that this camera will keep you nice and sharp. Now, the ironic thing is that everyone, including myself, said to Olympus that if you just equipped the EM5 body with this sensor a couple of years ago, you'd already have a winner. But the interesting thing is that even though it's taken them a while to do it, it's still a really compelling option, because all of its rivals have managed to make various mistakes, like heavily crop in 4K or not offer confident autofocus in certain modes, or most commonly of all, use vertically tilting screens which block accessories in some way. So Olympus, even though it's taken some time, may have come up with the ultimate vlogging camera. Now, on with the rest of the review. The earlier EM5 Mark II was one of my favourite all-round cameras. Stylish with excellent controls, compact but comfortable, sporting a useful side hinge screen, good viewfinder, some innovative modes, and amazing stabilisation. The only real downside with that model was its continuous autofocus, which fell behind rivals which were adopting more confident phase detect systems. When the EM1 Mark II finally brought phase detect autofocus to Micro Four Thirds 3 years ago, I immediately thought how it could transform the EM5 series, but due to a variety of circumstances, it's actually taken until 2019 for it to happen. I feared this update for the EM5 would now be too late, but thanks to strange limitations and decisions made by its rivals, it actually becomes one of the most compelling cameras in its category. Yes, the sensor is smaller than APS-C and the price higher than many mid-rangers, but the combination of features complemented by excellent stabilization remains pretty unique and very tempting. Some cameras come close but don't quite deliver the whole package. Canon's EOS M50 has the mic input, side hinge screen and great autofocus for 1080 as well as a APS-C sensor, but its 4K is compromised and there's no built-in stabilization. Meanwhile, Panasonic's G90, G95 has the mic input, side hinge screen and built-in stabilization, but again the 4K is cropped and the movie autofocus is not as confident. Overall, so long as you're happy with the Micro Four Thirds sensor size, or in fact can really benefit from the things that it brings to the table like fantastic stabilization and a really good lens catalogue, then there's not a lot to really complain about here. And that's all I can really say until I test a final production model, so let me know what you think in the comments. Is the EM5 Mark III late to the party or arriving in style? Once my final review is ready, I'll link to it here and all my samples will be at cameralabs.com, which only leaves me to say like, follow, coffee, t-shirt and book, or ideally all 5 in the order or configuration of your choice. Thanks as always for your support and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.